Anthony, I'm going to start with you on this one. Give me a couple of matchups that you're looking for in this game, that you're looking at.
In terms of matchups, we covered two of what I had already. My third one, though, I actually went to the special teams unit because I think if you asked a lot of Dolphins fans how our special teams was last year, they wouldn't have very nice things to say about it.
I'm one of them.
Coverage unit's pretty rough. Yeah. And I think something that not a lot of people are talking about because it's special teams, it's not sexy, but the Jaguars signed Devin Duvernay, guys. Like, this is not a joke of a returner here. He's not an all-star. He's not Devin Hester, but he's also not a scrub. I think Devin Duvernay is a real weapon for them that is probably being overlooked by everybody, let's be honest. But I think, a lot of the articles I read on this said, the one thing he brings that Jamal Agnew didn't bring, who they lost in the offseason, is that Devin Duvernay can actually play receiver too. So I think they have themselves a little bit of a weapon. Duvernay's older. So he's not, he's not in his prime or anything like that. But I do think this is an area where we have struggled mightily, and they have a weapon who could take advantage of that, especially with the new kickoff rules.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one, and that's a really underrated one. Devin Duvernay made some nice plays with the Ravens.
Sure did. he smoked us.
Yeah. And again, he's not Devin Hester. He's not Dante Hall.
Dante Hall.
But I mean, he doesn't have to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
No,
he's really good. He really is.
Yeah. He's a good special teams player. That's a nice pull, Anthony. I didn't think we're going to be talking about Devin Duvernay today, but I like that. I like that. Steve, do you have any matchups you want to go over?
Yeah, I actually like the Mike McDaniel versus Doug Peterson matchup.
Okay.
From me, Steve.
I'm sorry, Josh. I'm so sorry, but Peterson, man, he's got a wealth of knowledge, both as a quarterback in the league for 13 years and a coach. He's actually got a lot of coaching that people don't know about. He worked under Andy Reid for a few years with the Eagles and Kansas City, but he's obviously best known for a Super Bowl run in 2017 with the Eagles. And, Mike is kind of the nerd who uses data and analytics to muster up mismatches and, his little play calling, here mismatches here and there. But he's from the Shanahan coaching tree, and he was their run game coordinator. And I just think that this matchup is going to be awesome. Overall, I think both are great coaches, but Peterson has the edge in experience and proven results with the winning playoff games and winning a Super Bowl. But, Mike McDaniel offers a fresh, forward-thinking approach, and I'm pretty excited for it. I think Mike can definitely take the advantage of, a new age thinking and take this game home.
Yeah, I'd really love to see Mike McDaniel continue the Tua approach where he picks one thing to improve on, which he does. I mean, you look at it, there's a reason Tua does it too. The one thing I hope Mike McDaniel, and the reason I'm talking about this, Steve, is because that was my choice too, this coach versus coach, is his better decision-making on fourth down, specifically in the red zone. No more fades to Tyreek Hill, please. For the love of God, it doesn't work.
But dude, he does it. No, it does.
How many times has it worked versus how many times have we turned the ball over instead on the 2-yard line?
He just did it with River Craigcraft. He's getting better at him. Oh, I love him though. When it happens and it just falls there,
it's beautiful. But when you have our running back, it's the stable of running backs that we have, and we're on the 2-yard line, and it's fourth down to win a game. Don't fade it to the smallest person on the smallest wide receiver on our team.
We do need a big receiver. That's my biggest crutch about
that's
this
where
offense.
That's where Johnny Smith comes in, Steve.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's where the fades come, but we're notoriously unusable with our tight ends. I mean, unless we're going to use them as a fullback, we might start, but we don't use our tight ends. We haven't for a long time.
Yeah, but I have a theory on that, and it's a pretty well documented theory, but the fact of the matter is the Dolphins have needed. All right, you look at Mike McDaniel and the offense that he ran in San Francisco. His tight end was George Kittle. George Kittle does everything that you could ask your tight end to do. He's a great receiver. He's a very good blocker. He's a guy that you just want on the field for all 3-4 downs if necessary. Mike
he's durable.
And Mike McDaniel hasn't necessarily had that until this season with Johnny Smith. Durham Smythe, good blocker,
Yeah.
lacking as a receiver.
Yeah.
Julian Hill, good blocker, lacking as a receiver. With Jonnu Smith, you kind of get a guy who, not the best blocker, but he can certainly hold his own as a blocker.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a damn good receiver. So I think you're going to see a little bit more from the tight end position than you have in the past because you have a more complete player out there as your tight end.
It kills me that he didn't utilize Gesicki.
And Gesicki's
Mr.
another one.
Stonehands?
He couldn't block. He
On
couldn't block.
hands. He couldn't catch either. He couldn't run routes. He couldn't catch.
Gesicki's
He
another
could
one.
barely dance. I mean, it was horrible.
He couldn't block. And that was the MO
Yeah.
coming out of college, is that he was not a blocker.
No.
Like he makes Zach Ertz look like Anthony Munoz, like it's ridiculous. So he just couldn't, and that goes into my theory about this complete tight end thing.
Yeah.
Where Gesicki just wasn't a complete player. Decent receiver, decent route runner, mismatch in the slot, but ultimately, if Gesicki's on the field, you're pretty much broadcasting to the defense that you're about to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Whereas Julian Hill's on the field, you're pretty much broadcasting to the defense that you're about to run the ball.
I disagree with you. I think Julian Hill he's the Swiss Army knife right now. I think he's a blocker, he's a receiver, he's tall, he's fast. He's not great or even, some would argue, good at all of it yet. But I think what this offseason has shown me about Julian Hill, if he continues to improve the way he's improved from last year to this year, he has every reason to be a starter eventually.
Well, I'd love to see it happen. I like his potential. I like his athleticism.
I think the tight end position is a big mystery. I mean, we have the potential there, like you're saying with Jonnu Smith, but I think it's a mystery on how we're really going to use them. I mean, we have so many other guys that we have to get the ball to as well. I don't think that tight end spot's really going to blow up and be a favorable position that we're going to be talking about later on down the season. I think it's going to end up being one of the same type of song and dances, maybe 300-400 yards, a couple touchdowns. I don't think anything significant is going to come out of that position when you have two running backs you're going to feed, 2 to maybe 3 if Odell comes back and does anything productive. He's a name that that's going to buy jerseys. That's a financial decision and having him in the field. But if that's the case, you're going to want to get him the ball too. He could easily be one of the higher grossing players for fan likability, jerseys, merchandise for that Dolphins team. I mean, he's got one of the biggest fan bases out there. But
he does.
I don't see that tight end spot really taking a huge step forward.
I got a hot take about the tight end position at some point in the show.
We're going to get to that. I know you do, Josh. As far as Odell Beckham's concerned, he may have a burgeoning fan base out there. You might have a lot of fans out there. I'm not one currently. Dolphins signed him, and he just didn't practice all preseason.
Yeah, I would be happy without him.
I'd be happy.
Really know?
No,
exactly. So how can we be mad about it or happy about it? We just don't know what he has. They signed him knowing he was injured. They knew he was going to miss most of the preseason. That is documented.
That's what's a mystery to me.
Yeah, nobody's ever.
Isn't it? I think I don't know.
Nobody knows.
But they knew he was injured when they signed him. They knew, I mean, again, in Mike McDaniel fashion, they were going to bubble wrap him anyway, so he probably wouldn't have played a lot, even if he was healthy. So, I think what he offers is attention away from Waddle and Hill.
For sure.
Because of his name recognition, to your point. In his last healthy year in Baltimore, he had a decent season. I mean, nothing to write home about, but, I mean, it's not the Odell Beckham from New York where he's catching one hands behind his, doing backflips in flip-flops. But I mean, he's still a receiver. He still has talent. He's a third option for a reason,
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like between the two options of running back, we really have 3 running backs essentially, but you can't play all 3. So I'm splitting it up between 2 of them, 50-50 backs. And then you got your 2 star-studded receivers that you just paid. Like you gotta give them the ball. There's a lot of ball to go around and only so many plays called during the game.
All right. So Josh, we're gonna get back to the matchups.
Yes.
Were there any matchups that haven't been mentioned that you want to talk about today?
I mean, look, this is on the fly, so I didn't look it up. I don't have a lot of statistics, but I think, in the same realm as Anthony touched on special teams, I think only because I am very down on this position, I think it's the weakest position on our team. Punter versus punter. I know that's very silly to talk about, right? But field position is key in a lot of games, and I think Bailey is. I think I'm as a former soccer player, I think I'm a better punter than Jake Bailey is. When you have a punter that kicked it, that full kick I forgot what game it was, but it went 25 yards. Sit down. Just, you know what? Let's just go for it on fourth down and call it a day. And I think if this game, and I'm not saying it does, if this game turns into, for whatever reason, a defensive struggle, right? Or rather an offensive struggle because the defenses are playing so well, it comes down to field position. And I think from a special teams perspective, it's not just the return. It's not just the kickoff returns and the kickoff coverages. It also comes down to punter. And if it not just this one, but any game this season, as long as we have Jake Bailey as our punter, if it comes down to punting, we are not in a good position, and we probably won't win that game.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Josh. I wondered why we kept Jake Bailey around this season, because there has to be somebody better out there. The only thing I can think is Jason Sanders likes him as his holder. And Jason Sanders had a resurgent. I know, I get it, but he had a resurgent season for us last year. Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe the only thing I can think is maybe the Dolphins prioritized Jason Sanders making his kicks rather than Jake Bailey, getting the Dolphins good field. But that's the only thing I can think.
I think he's got dirt on Mike McDaniel and Stephen Ross. I think he's got dirt on Mike McDaniel and Stephen Ross.
You might be right about that too.
It's the only thing I can think of.
It was the first preseason game we were talking about it too. We were chatting on Discord, and 25-yard punt. Like, what is this? I mean, maybe I thought it was an undrafted guy or something. Like, most punters are undrafted, but I thought maybe it was a guy fighting for the spot. Nope, that's our starter. There it is, boys.
Especially when we got rid of Morstead, who I believe is now with the Jets.
The Jets, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a guy that was steady, consistent. The season he played with us, booming him 50 plus. I mean, and then you go to Jake Bailey, and it's a disaster. I mean, it really genuinely, I'm not waxing poetic here about it, but it is genuinely a disaster. The fact that we still have him as our starter, in my opinion. Now, he could come back. Look, to y'all's point earlier, every player, if we're going to say it about Tua, we're going to say it about our wide receivers and offensive line, every player gets better. Maybe he comes back. Maybe he did squats. And I don't know, but he needs to figure something out.
Maybe we can trade the Bears at third for that kid out of Iowa.
Oh, God. You know what? Let's give him Jake Bailey, a public sub, and a third-round pick, and we'll take him.
They can have Beckham, too, if they want him.
Yeah, we'll give him Roman.